So the panel is live streaming for podcasters, how to use live video to elevate your podcast and business. I don't know if you're seeing the layout the same as I am, but next to me in this layout is Geige Vandentop. I call him one of the two most important people in live streaming, along with his co-founder, Dan Briggs. I think he deserves that title. He's the CEO and co-founder of StreamYard. It's the web-based live streaming app that we're using to produce this broadcast and stream it out to Facebook Live and elsewhere. Geige also co-hosts the weekly StreamYard Town Hall. The woman on the panel is one of the most talented live streamers on social media. She's the author of Leverage Live Streaming to Build Your Brand, the co-founder of ImproVideo, and the host of the very first variety show on Facebook Live. She's been live streaming for a long time and is great at it. And we're honored to have Mr. Rob Greenlee. He's a pioneer, a leader in the live streaming and podcasting field. He does the new media show every week as both a live stream and a podcast. He's also a Hall of Fame podcaster and vice president at Libsyn. So give a big virtual round of applause for our esteemed panel. Let's start with Rob. Why should podcasters consider live streaming?
Well, because I think the podcasting medium is a very personal medium, and I think podcasters want to create a conversation with their audience, and this definitely creates an environment where the audience can come in and engage with you and create a conversation. And I think that's what makes this medium so special, is that it is all about the connection with the audience.
Jennifer, you work with a lot of people using live streaming on behalf of business. Whether the people are podcasters or not, how can live streaming help them promote their products and services?
Well, very similar to what Rob said. You know, everything on social media, everything in digital marketing is about that connection. It's about building relationships. And we have an unprecedented opportunity to use live video to do that. You can build the know, like, and trust factor. The people who are winning at live streaming are the ones who get that. They see this as a long game in building relationships. And here's why. So video is 82% of all content online, right? The reason live video puts you above the rest is because people get to know, like, and trust you faster because it's live. I mean, we don't go to the car race to see who's going to win. We go to see who's going to crash, right? Or the hockey game, we want to see who's going to break out in a fight. Just like live video, you don't know what's going to happen. And so right now, Ross, if something went wrong with tech and you're the host of the panel, you know, then we would get to know exactly how you react under stress. If I mince my words and I don't say what I mean, then you get to see me in real time correct myself. And that builds a stronger relationship and increases trust exponentially.
Hopefully we won't have to recover from any mishaps,
Right.
But if we do, we'll make the best of it. So Geige, for people getting started, or maybe people already streaming who want to get better results, what do you think are the essential gear and technology that they need in order to successfully get their live stream on air so that it looks good, looks presentable and professional?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm excited to be on this panel, by the way. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
Yeah, but lots of people, I think, get paralyzed by like the amount of information out there. They think they need like all this fancy equipment or really fancy lighting, which is all that stuff's great. And you should work towards that. But if you haven't even started live streaming, you can make a really good live stream with just your phone, right? So it doesn't have to be complicated. If you don't have all the tools, you know, you can just start with your phone and you can go live to any major platform. So if that's all you're working with, I would suggest doing that. There's nothing wrong with going live from a phone. If you'd like to sort of do some more interesting stuff, I'm sure I'm biased, but I obviously am a fan of StreamYard. So it allows you to do some cool stuff like bring in guests remotely, which is obviously pretty relevant now. As far as StreamYard, you don't need much either. You just need a desktop or laptop to host the stream, a webcam, either internal, external is probably a better idea. and then an external mic so you get a good sound. But overall, I would just say it's easy to get stressed out if you're like if you just Google, how do I start live streaming? You're probably going to read a bunch of information and not want to start. So I would relax and just, if you need to just get started with your phone, just get started with your phone is what I would suggest.
Now, Rob, as somebody who live streams your podcast each week, what advice do you have for people who may be deciding, is that a good idea, or should I be using live streaming in a different way? And if they do live stream their podcast, there may be certain challenges to getting the audio they need. Give a little overview of the sort of the pros and cons of live streaming your podcast.
Well, I think that there's kind of two ways you can look at it. I think you can create a live streaming program that is maybe different from your podcast too. So I think the option of doing an audio only program is still there, and then doing like maybe a second program each week that is just all about connecting with your audience, and it's a little different piece of content. That's kind of how I'm starting to think about it. As we talked about on the New Media Show today earlier, we're going to launch a second show. Is what we're going to do. That's just going to be a call-in show, but we're still going to continue to do our Saturday show, which will be more of what we've been doing for the last 10 or 12 years. So I think that there's kind of a different way of looking at it. I think more and more of the streaming platforms, and Geige, maybe you can jump in on this too, are really starting to focus more on the audio quality coming out of those platforms that then can become your audio episode that can be put out as a podcast. So I know, Geige, I don't know if you have any updates on the your work around the platform, around the audio quality coming out of the platform, but that might be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something we're always thinking about and working on, because we love podcasters. We love the content they create, and we want to make it as easy as possible to create a podcast. So that's one thing that I love about working on StreamYard, is we see people starting to do a podcast that maybe otherwise they're introduced to podcasting from live streaming. So that's nice. But yeah, one thing we've recently introduced is the ability to sort of disable all the extra audio processing that StreamYard does. So like, in order to make things sound nice, we do echo cancellation and noise suppression and things like that. But if you're a podcaster and have a good audio setup, that's only going to reduce the quality of your sound. So we do have that option there. And if you disable it, it'll increase your audio bit rate, and we'll do some other stuff too. It's like, okay, this person has a high quality setup. Let's optimize for that. And then we're also continuing to work on ways to account for people. Obviously, if you're recording a podcast with someone remotely, you're always sort of at the mercy of their network connection. So yes, we're always working on improving that. So even if someone is on, maybe a shaky 4G connection on a bus or something, that we can still get a good quality feed. It's a process, and it's always going to improve. So it's never going to be quite the same as if you were recording in person, but that's a luxury we don't really have right now. So, but yeah, it's definitely something we're working on and want to continue to support.
And some people are recording their podcasts with video using StreamYard, even if they're not going live, so that they have video clips that they can share or put on YouTube. You mentioned disabling the processing if you have high quality audio equipment, so you can get the best sound. Is that something that people who bring on guests need to ask their guests to do? Does everybody have to do that, or just each individual can make a choice on that?
Each individual can make a choice. So so it's like, if someone has a really good setup, it's kind of nice because they don't have to get everyone in the room to sort of play ball with them. They can check that setting themselves.
Jennifer, in your book, you really give a game plan for going from novice live streamer to a polished professional using live streaming on behalf of their brand or their business. Talk about a few of the tips that you provide to people who are trying to up their game at live streaming, or who might be new at live streaming.
Yeah, perfect. And I really appreciate what Geige said at the beginning. The biggest barrier of entry is our fear of thinking that we have to be perfect when we start. And you absolutely can start live streaming with what you have right now. So the way that I break this down is I have an acronym called LAVS. These are the most important 4 elements if you're a beginning live streamer, actually at any level. So let me just briefly go over them. There's lighting, audio, video, and stability. So lighting is super easy. If you have a window, just sit in front of the window with the light coming in on you and turn off the overhead lights. and you've got beautiful lighting. Audio, of course, you know, if you are starting with your mobile device, something as simple as if you're in a quiet place and you have a recent model phone, you're going to be just fine just using the built-in audio. If you want to level it up a little bit, use the earbuds or your AirPods to use with your mobile device. Now, video is important in a couple different ways. If you're using a recent mobile device, the technology is keeping up and you're fine. You have good enough quality. Don't even worry about it. But also pay attention to your background, because you have 3 to 5 seconds to capture someone's attention. And the best way to build trust is to show up the way your clients expect you to. So be aware of your background in that context. How do my clients expect me to show up? It's going to be a very different answer for every industry. And then stability simply cannot be understated. Stability, you know, back in the day when we started on Periscope, nobody cared. We were tolerant, but we've become more sophisticated viewers. And if there's any distraction with the camera not being stable, that you're going to lose viewers right away. And so a simple hack for that is a selfie stick tripod, or get creative with books and boxes. So there, you have no excuse. Just get started.
Yeah, it's a good thing I went to grad school, because I have all those books propping up
Perfect.
my camera, mini tripod. Rob, anything you want to add to that as far as what it takes to be good at live streaming or live streaming your podcast? As we know, the audio side is so important as well, particularly for podcasting.
Yeah, I do think that the background is important. I know as you look at my background, it's pretty plain right now, but I'm planning on building a more interesting kind of background. And I also found that kind of backlighting is also important too, to creating good balance in your video too. So if you have a kind of a dark background, it can create kind of unusual kind of lighting situations. So it's helpful to, like I have a small light that's on the carpet behind me that's lighting up the wall behind me. So it actually helps balance out the white balance of the image. So there's little things like that, and I'm going to add some things on the wall behind me. But you can also use like what Geige has. He's got basically a green screen, and if you look at what Geige is doing and then compare it to what Ross is doing, you can really see what the opportunity is around being able to throw an image up behind you that maybe simulates kind of like what Jenny has behind her, or it can be an image of your program or some text or some good visuals, but behind you that adds a little bit more context to what you're doing. So I think what you're seeing in the 4 boxes here kind of shows you the spectrum of opportunity of what you can do behind you as well.
Yeah, really well put, Rob. Geige, what are you seeing from people in terms of how they're using the StreamYard green screen? It's just a very popular thing. Honestly, I had not thought about using one until StreamYard came out with it, and now I can't really go back to the 2 doors behind me and the doorknobs and the light switch and whatever, because now I can have any background I want for what. So talk a little bit about the green screen, which Rob mentioned, and some of the things maybe you're seeing people doing with it as a way to enhance the visual aspect of their broadcasts.
Yeah, absolutely. People are using it in pretty cool ways. One interesting way that I didn't really expect is using it to do like presentations where they upload a bunch of different backgrounds for the green screen and sort of go through slides as if they're pointing at the green screen, which I've definitely enjoyed that. But yeah, like Jenny and Rob said, I do think the background's very important, and the green screen is a nice way to sort of in a very cheap manner. Like if you don't have a nice background, for probably $30 to $50, you can emulate one essentially. My personal preference still is like, I do think a real background, like once you get to that point, is ideal to have like an actual studio behind you, but I'm a big fan of both, and I see people doing both.
One interesting aspect that just came to me is all 3 of you in your live shows manage your chats very differently. And that's something somebody who's been recording content now comes to live, and they have a live chat, and that chat experience is a unique and often very valuable part of live streaming. Anybody can step up and go first. I'm just curious what advice you would share to people in terms of how to manage your chat and maybe why you work with your chat, you interact with your viewers in the way you do in the specific show that you're doing.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I think the way to interact with your viewers, it depends a lot on your goals and what you're trying to accomplish with your live stream. So if you are recording your podcast live, it kind of makes sense to compartmentalize when you interact with your viewers. I would definitely take advantage of interacting with viewers in the comments because that's how you build the relationship. So don't, I have seen some people who are going just to record and they go live, but they don't interact. And that's a little bit off-putting to the viewers who are watching you live, right? And so one way to do that is create a structure of your content and know that you're going to reach out and answer questions and give shout outs at certain points or segments in your show.
Right, and it can be a little distracting too as you're doing a show. I think it depends on the type of format that the show is. That looking over at the comment threads of your comment can be a little distracting from the program, and that's part of the reason I think Todd and I want to create a second program is so we can really focus on the audience. But I know Todd is always keeping an eye on the comment stream, and he typically operates that on a separate computer that's separate from what he's actually using to produce the program. But it does take a little bit of a skill to be able to look over there and still be able to talk. And I think he tends to do that when I'm talking. So it's one advantage of having a co-host is that you can tend to multitask a little easier.
Yeah, like Rob and Jenny said, I think it definitely is. It's very dependent on the type of show you're doing. So personally, the show we do is very much, it's like a community oriented. We call it our town hall. So our entire stream is essentially just doing Q&A. So if you're doing a Q&A stream, obviously it makes sense to pay a lot of attention to your chat or else you wouldn't have any content. But it can certainly be difficult to manage, especially if you get a lot of comments. Like it varies a lot depending on the type of stream you have. And we definitely, like at the beginning, there was very few comments and now there's a lot to manage, especially if you have sort of people acting out of line, it can be a bit problematic. But yeah, it would totally depend on the type of show you're doing. Like if you're doing a weekly community show type thing, obviously the chat should be probably the biggest focus. If I was doing a live stream where it was sort of planned and I had a subject I wanted to cover, I think like Jenny said, you just need to plan it out. So have a time where you're answering questions, and that might maybe is before and after the main content, or maybe you have a time during, but just have a plan for it, and that will sort of lower the stress. And having someone to sort of help you, like a moderator, to help you sort of field those questions, like I think both Rob and Jenny mentioned, that is extremely helpful to sort of lower your cortisol levels.
Yeah. So speaking of the chat, if you have any questions for our panelists or a topic you would like us to discuss in the time that you have we have left, please do throw that into the chat. John Piper asks, can you post Rob's and Jenny's shows? I know how to find Ross and Gaige's shows. So I'm just going to do this off the top of my head. Hope I'm correct. You can find the New Media Show at newmediashow.com. And you can find it also on all the podcasting apps. Just put New Media Show in. You can find Geige at the StreamYard Facebook page, the StreamYard YouTube channel, the StreamYard LinkedIn account, or the Twitch channel, the Periscope.
Just type in StreamYard, you'll find all of them.
Yeah. But you can find the town hall on all the platforms. Just look for StreamYard. And JennyQLive.com is the best way to find you, Jennifer?
Yep, that's great. Or just Facebook.com/The Jenny Q Show.
Kristen asks, should you have a certain amount of followers or listeners before starting to live stream?
Should I jump on that one?
Sure.
No, I definitely don't think so. One interesting thing about that is, like, it used to be a bigger problem where it used to be like on Facebook, if you had 1 million followers, Facebook would show your content to 1 million people. And on YouTube, if you had 1 million subscribers, they'd show it to 1 million people. But that's no longer the case, because the algorithms on these platforms have sort of changed, where they care a lot more about the actual content and how viewers are responding to it. because they make money off of advertising, right? So they want people to be making good content so people stay on the platform longer and see more ads. So you're not at nearly as much as a disadvantage as you used to be. So as long as you make great content, start now, start today, because they'll reward you with organic reach if you make good content. So absolutely, definitely not. If you have good content, you have something to say, just start.
Jennifer, Tim Gillette asks, did you put any planning into creating your background? Does it have a purpose or just decoration to your taste?
Hey, Tim, nice to see you again. Yes, I have several different backgrounds depending on what I'm broadcasting or what the show is. So I have a set that's for the Jenny Q show. This is my more casual, I hope I came close, but it's more a casual / professional, come hang out with me for a minute background. And so I think that it really can communicate in nonverbals something about yourself or your brand.
Daniel Bauman asks Geige, will StreamYard ever allow 1080p video?
At some point, we will allow 1080p video. That's always a popular question. Yes, at some point.
Brent Basham mentions in the chat, he mentions, just moved up, I found it a little tough to pay attention to a guest and pull in a lot of comments. For Rob, if you are recording your podcast live and making a live stream show out of it, how do you handle that time where you're maybe shouting out to people in the chat, you're welcoming people? Do you leave that in the recording when you make the podcast, or do you take some of that engagement out? How do you treat that when you're making a podcast out of a live stream show?
Well, we typically don't do any editing of the body of the content of the show itself. The only editing that we might do on the audio side would be if we had any kind of, which happens a lot in the live streaming side of like a couple minutes at the beginning of the program where we're just getting all the various platforms up and running. That there's usually like maybe 1 minute to 2 minutes of kind of what I might call to some degree kind of dead air. As we get kind of all of the platforms ramped up, because we simultaneously stream to all of the major streaming platforms, and sometimes they come online at different times. So Todd will go in and do some editing at the very beginning of the program to cut all that stuff out. And so when you listen to the audio version of it, it just comes out as just like a regular podcast would. But we also don't do any kind of intros or exits or have any music or have anything like that. We just jump right into the content, welcome the audience to the program, and just jump right in. We don't take time to play any kind of fancy intros. And Geige, this is a good question for you. Are you seeing very many shows do like a video intro or anything like that to what they're doing on the platform?
Yeah, I see lots of people do an intro and outro, but I find especially the podcasters keep the show itself pretty tight, where at the beginning they'll do the hangout session, talk and welcome people in, and then it'll be let's start the show. They'll do the intro and sort of do their run of show, and then at the end again start engaging with the audience. But I haven't seen too many people where they in the middle of it will interrupt to talk to an audience member.
A Facebook user asks, how is great content graded? Is that AI or with human clicking and watching? So how does something become promoted to a lot of people by the platform? How does it decide, okay, we're going to make this a prominent video on Facebook and get it seen by a lot of people? Does anybody have a thought on that?
Well, I can attack that one a little bit. I don't think that there is any grading that's going on any of the streaming channels at all. I think it's audience graded, right? I think the more popular the program is, probably the better the content is kind of the safe way to look at it. But as a podcast, I mean, certainly there are feature situations on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts and Spotify that typically, the more popular, larger shows typically get greater consideration for feature promotions. And they do tend to be larger shows or shows that are being done by celebrities or high kind of audience impact type programs that get promoted. Now, platforms like StreamYard I don't know, Geige, are you guys doing any special promotions of certain programs that are maybe higher profile?
We see ourselves as more of a tool, so we generally let the platforms themselves handle that. But yeah, as far as like what like how platforms decide great content, I'm more familiar with the video platforms than the podcasting platforms. But I know there's definitely, I mean, only Facebook and YouTube know for sure how they do it. But I'm quite sure there's not like people grading it. It's like Rob said, it's how long people are watching and how many people are clicking it and whatnot, and that's sort of what decides what great content is. But yeah, if you have, there are definitely things that happen in the background as well, especially for a celebrity or whatnot, where they'll put you on the trending or the featured page or whatnot.
Right.
I do want to add one thing to this, Ross, if we have the time.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So there is definitely an algorithm going on that has to do with engagement. So if you're getting more comments, more likes, more shares, that's telling it's very basic, right? That's telling Facebook, this is great content, or at least good content. And there are some AI things happening while you're live that will actually ding you in the algorithm. One of them being if you ask explicitly for specific engagement. So for example, if you're on live, because it's kind of a clickbait style on video.
Maybe don't give an example. We don't want to get dinged
no,
here.
I know. I'm just like, how do I say this? I don't want to get dinged. But I could spell it out, or if I knew sign language or something.
Right.
But, if you're intentionally telling people exactly what to type in the comments, just so that the algorithm will share it more, the AI is listening and will now ding you for that.
Wow. Okay.
So we have about, it's easy for me to say, we have about 4 minutes left. I'd like to go around and get an example or two from everybody of how somebody could use live streaming, either on behalf of growing their podcast or on behalf of growing their business. You've all seen a lot of different kinds of content being created. We'll start with Geige.
Yeah, I'm more familiar with the business aspect of things, but yeah, I see people using it in all kinds of ways, specifically for businesses. I think it's a great way to sort of, especially if you're smaller, like content marketing is a really, really powerful tool. And that's why you see like most major companies have like a full-on content marketing team. And you would struggle to find a big company now that doesn't have a blog. Like everyone has, I don't know if everyone should, but almost every company has a blog now. So if you're a small, that's great. But if you're a small operation, it can take a lot of time to write blog posts and create highly produced videos, right? So the nice thing about live streaming is it allows someone who is maybe a smaller operation to tell their story and benefit from that content marketing. So I find that's a great way. It helped us a lot too. That's why we started our live streaming. It's a great way to sort of find that core audience of fans who will stick with you and help you like sort of evangelize your product or service or whatever it is. And I see a lot of people doing that.
Jennifer?
Yes, very good. So, and I work mostly with professionals who are super busy, attorneys, doctors, physical therapists. And the reason that live streaming works so well with just a few skills, they can hop on, get the information out of their head, get it onto a live video, and then their team can take it and repurpose it in much of the way that Geige was talking about. Take it, transcribe it, create a blog post, create clips, etc. And the biggest advice that I would give to anyone in a professional industry is make sure you're keeping your content consistent and street level. We are so in our heads with our industry lingo that the clients that we want to attract, they have no frame of reference for what we're talking about, right? And so make sure you're at street level conversation as if you're meeting someone for the first time in your office and you're explaining things to them.
Rob?
Yeah, I think that the opportunity of this is pretty impactful from a company perspective. Having that feedback process with the customers, with their users about features, functionality, concerns, issues, and having a personal connection with someone at the company that's available on a live program like this is very powerful in multiple areas. The customer support team can benefit from it. The PR team can benefit from it, and it becomes a personal touch point for customers with the company. And it's really a matter of identifying one or two people in the company to step up and create a program and create that kind of opportunity for customers to connect.
Final thought from everybody, if you would, now with the coronavirus and so many people working from home, when things quote unquote go back to normal, what will it mean for video content creation going forward?
Well, Ross, let me jump in on that. I'm not sure that things are going to go back to normal. I think the changes that we're seeing in the market right now are going to be long-standing, and I do think that our remote work is going to become even more important than it was before. And I think that's where the big change is, and these live platforms like StreamYard and others are going to play an important role in that.
Sorry, go ahead, Jane.
Go ahead, Geige. No, you go.
Okay. Yeah, what Rob said, essentially exactly what Rob said. There will be, I hope, some change back to normal, but I do think things have permanently changed, and hopefully for the better. Like, I think a lot of people just trial by fire are learning what remote work is like, and especially larger businesses are really testing their systems and whether or not it works for them. And I think a lot of them are finding success. So I think there'll be a lot more awareness around that as an option, and things will have permanently changed, and that will be a much more common way to go about work.
Jennifer, you get the last word.
Oh, awesome. So we have a really cool opportunity right now to not only create a video library that maybe we didn't have time to do before, right? And Ross, this is your phrase that I just completely love. Create your video portfolio online, and do it now, and create and master the skills. And in the process of that, use this also as an opportunity to share all the information and the knowledge that you have using video, using live streaming with others who need the skills you have. This is a great time to step up and just come together in this time that literally everyone on the planet, is in crisis mode. And so this virtual conference is a great example of that. And Ross, thank you so much for having me on. Joe and Geige and Rob, it was great being on the panel with you.
Thank you all so much. Again, Geige Vandentop from StreamYard, StreamYard.com. Jennifer Quinn, JennyQLive.com. Rob Greenlee, Vice President at Libsyn, and also host of the new media show. And we can send it back to Joe if he's ready, or we'll do another round of questions if you'd like.